Thoughts and feelings broadcasting our electromagnetic signal to the quantum field. Since every potential in the universe is a wave of probability that has an electromagnetic field and is energetic in nature, it makes sense that our thoughts and feelings are no exception. I find it a useful model to think of thoughts as the electrical charge in the quantum field, and feelings as the magnetic charge in the field. Point 4. The thoughts we think send an electrical signal out into the field. The feelings we generate magnetically draw events back to us. Together, how we think and how we feel produces a state of being, which generates an electromagnetic signature that influences every atom in our world. This should prompt us to ask, what am I broadcasting, consciously or unconsciously, on a daily basis? All potential experiences exist as electromagnetic signatures in the quantum field. There are an infinite number of potential electromagnetic signatures for genius, for wealth, for freedom, for health, that already exist as a frequency pattern of energy. If you could create a new electromagnetic field by changing your state of being, which matches that potential in the quantum field of information, is it possible that your body would be drawn to that event, or that event would find you? Figure 1e. All potential experiences exist in the quantum field as a sea of infinite possibilities. When you change your electromagnetic signature to match one that already exists in the field, your body will be drawn to that event, you will move into a new line of time, or the event will find you in your new reality. To experience change, observe a new outcome with a new mind. Quite simply, our routine, known thoughts and feelings perpetuate the same state of being, which creates the same behaviors, and creates the same reality. So if we want to change some aspect of our reality, we have to think, feel, and act in new ways. We have to be different in terms of our responses to experiences. We have to become someone else. We have to create a new state of mind. We need to observe a new outcome with that new mind. From a quantum standpoint, we have to create a different state of being as an observer and generate a new electromagnetic signature. When we do, we will match a potential reality in the field that exists only as an electromagnetic potential. Once that match exists between who we are being / what we are broadcasting and the electromagnetic potential in the field, we will be pulled toward that potential reality, or it will find us. I know that it's frustrating when life seems to produce an endless succession of minor variations on the same negative outcomes. But as long as you stay the same person, as long as your electromagnetic signature remains the same, you can't expect a new outcome. To change your life is to change your energy, to make an elemental change in your mind and emotions. If you want a new outcome, you will have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent a new self. Change requires coherence. Align your thoughts and feelings. What do your state of being and a laser have in common? I'll make this connection to illustrate another thing you need to know if you want to change your life. A laser is an example of a very coherent signal. When physicists talk about a coherent signal, they are referring to a signal made up of waves that are in phase. Their troughs, low points, and crests, high points, are parallel. When those waves are coherent, they are much more powerful. Figure 1f. When waves are in phase and rhythmic, they are more powerful than when they are out of phase. Waves in a signal are either aligned or unaligned, coherent or incoherent. The same goes for your thoughts and feelings. How many times have you tried to create something, thinking in your mind that the end result was possible, but feeling in your heart that it wasn't? What was the result of that incoherent / out-of-phase signal that you were sending? Why is it that nothing manifested? As you just saw with the HeartMath study, quantum creating only works when your thoughts and feelings are aligned. Just as the waves in a signal are much more powerful when they are coherent, the same is true of you when your thoughts and your feelings are aligned. When you hold clear, focused thoughts about your purpose, accompanied by your passionate emotional engagement, you broadcast a stronger electromagnetic signal that pulls you toward a potential reality that matches what you want. I frequently talk to my workshop audiences about my grandmother, a woman I adored. She was old-school Italian, as steeped in Catholic guilt as she was in the tradition of making tomato gravy to spoon on pasta. She prayed constantly for things, and deliberately thought about a new life. But the guilt that had been instilled in her throughout her upbringing confused the signal she was sending. She only manifested more reasons to feel guilty. If your intentions and desires haven't produced consistent results, you've probably been sending an incoherent, mixed message into the field. You may want wealth, you may think wealthy thoughts, but if you feel poor, you aren't going to attract financial abundance to yourself. Why not? Because thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. You're thinking one way and feeling another way. And when the mind is in opposition to the body, or vice versa, the field won't respond in any consistent way. Instead, when mind and body are working together, when our thoughts and feelings are aligned, when we are in a new state of being, then we are sending a coherent signal on the airwaves of the invisible. Why quantum outcomes should come as a surprise. Now let's fill in another piece of the puzzle. To change our reality, those outcomes that we attract to ourselves have to surprise, even astonish, us in the way in which they come about. We should never be able to predict how our new creations will manifest. They must catch us off guard. They have to wake us up from the dream of the routine reality that we've grown accustomed to. These manifestations should leave us with no doubt that our consciousness made contact with the quantum field of intelligence, so we are inspired to do this again. That is the joy of the creative process. Why should you want a quantum surprise? If you can predict an event, it is nothing new. It's routine, automatic, and you have experienced it many times before. If you can predict it, you produce the same familiar outcome. In fact, if you're trying to control how an outcome will occur, you just went Newtonian. Newtonian, classical physics, was about trying to anticipate and predict events. It was all about cause and effect. What does going Newtonian mean when applied to your ability to create? It's when the external environment is controlling your internal environment, thinking/feeling. That's cause and effect. Instead, change your internal environment, the way you think and feel, and then see how the external environment is altered by your efforts. Strive to create an unknown, new future experience. Then, when an unforeseen event occurs in your favor, you will be pleasantly surprised. You just became a quantum creator. You just went from cause and effect to causing an effect. Hold a clear intention of what you want, but leave the how, details, to the unpredictable quantum field. Let it orchestrate an event in your life in a way that is just right for you. If you're going to expect anything, expect the unexpected. Surrender, trust, and let go of how a desired event will unfold. This is the biggest hurdle for most to overcome, because we human beings always want to control a future reality by trying to recreate how it occurred in a past reality. Quantum creating. Giving thanks before receiving an outcome. I've just talked about aligning our thoughts and feelings to produce the result we want, yet in the process, letting go of the details surrounding how that event will come about. That's a leap of faith, and it is necessary if we are to exchange a life of humdrum, predictable outcomes for a joyful life of new experiences and quantum surprises. But we'll need to make yet another leap of faith to bring what we want into reality. Under what circumstances are you typically grateful? You may answer, I'm grateful for my family, the nice home I have, my friends, and my job. What those things have in common is that they're already in your life. Generally, we are grateful for something that already happened or is already present in our lives. You and I have been conditioned into believing that we need a reason for joy, a motivation to feel gratitude, grounds to be in a state of love. That's relying on external reality to make us feel different internally. It's Newton's model. The new model of reality challenges us, as quantum creators, to change something within us, in mind and body, in our thoughts and feelings, before we can experience the physical evidence with our senses. Can you give thanks and feel the elevated emotions associated with a desired event before it occurs? Can you imagine that reality so completely that you begin to be in that future life now? In terms of quantum creating, can you give thanks for something that exists as a potential in the quantum field but has not yet happened in your reality? If so, you are moving from cause and effect, waiting for something outside of you to make a change inside of you, to causing an effect, changing something inside of you to produce an effect outside of you. When you are in a state of gratitude, you transmit a signal into the field that an event has already occurred. Gratitude is more than an intellectual thought process. You have to feel as though whatever you want is in your reality at this very moment. Thus, your body, which only understands feelings, must be convinced that it has the emotional quotient of the future experience happening to you now. Universal intelligence and the quantum field. I hope by now you agree on some basic underlying concepts of the quantum model, that all physical reality is primarily energy existing in a vast web that is interconnected across space and time. That web, the quantum field, holds all probabilities, which we can collapse into reality through our thoughts, consciousness, observation, feelings, and state of being. But is reality nothing but indifferent electromagnetic forces acting on and in response to one another? Is the animating spirit within us simply a function of biology and randomness? I've had conversations with people who hold this view. Ultimately, the discussion leads to a dialogue that goes something like this. Where does the intelligence that keeps our heart beating come from? That's a part of the autonomic nervous system. Where is that system located? The brain. The brain's limbic system is part of the autonomic nervous system. And within the brain, are there specific tissues that are responsible for keeping the heart beating? Yes. What are those tissues made up of? Cells. And what are those cells made up of? Molecules. What are those molecules made up of? Atoms. And what are those atoms made up of? Subatomic particles. And what are those subatomic particles primarily composed of? Energy. When we arrive at the conclusion that our physiological vehicle is made up of the same stuff as the rest of the universe, and these folks bump up against the notion that what animates the body is a form of energy, the same 99.99999% nothing that constitutes the physical universe, they either shrug and walk away or come to realize that there is something to this notion that a unifying principle pervades all of physical reality. Isn't it ironic, then, that we keep all of our attention on the 0.00001% of reality that is physical? Are we missing something? If this nothing consists of energy waves that carry information, and this force organizes our physical structures and their functioning, then it certainly makes sense to refer to the quantum field as an invisible intelligence. And since energy is at the basis of all physical reality, that intelligence I've just described to you has organized itself into matter. Think of the preceding conversation as a kind of template for how this intelligence has constructed reality. The quantum field is invisible potential energy that is able to organize itself from energy to subatomic particles, to atoms, to molecules, and on up the line to everything. From a physiological perspective, it organizes molecules into cells, into tissues, into organs, into systems, and finally into the body as a whole. Put another way, this potential energy lowers itself as a frequency of wave patterns until it appears as solid. It is this universal intelligence that gives life to that field, and everything in it, including you and me. This power is the same universal mind that animates every aspect of the material universe. This intelligence keeps our hearts beating and our stomachs digesting food and oversees an incalculable number of chemical reactions per second that take place in every cell. Moreover, the same consciousness prompts trees to grow fruit and causes distant galaxies to form and collapse. Because it exists in all places and times, and exerts its power within us and all around us, this intelligence is both personal and universal. As an extension of this intelligence, we can emulate it. Understand that this universal intelligence possesses the same awareness that makes us individuals, consciousness, or mindfulness. Even though this power is universal and objective, it does possess a consciousness, an awareness of self and its own ability to move and act within the material universe. It is also completely mindful on all levels, not just of itself, but of you and me. Because this consciousness notices everything, it observes and pays attention to us. It is aware of our thoughts, our dreams, our behaviors, and our desires. It observes everything into physical form. How can a consciousness that has created all of life, that expends the energy and will to consistently regulate every function of our bodies to keep us alive, that has expressed such a deep and abiding interest in us, be anything but pure love? We've talked about two aspects of consciousness: the objective consciousness / intelligence of the field, and the subjective consciousness that is a free-willed, self-aware individual. When we emulate the properties of this awareness, we are becoming creators. When we feel resonance with this loving intelligence, we become like it. This intelligence will orchestrate an event, an energetic response, to match whatever the subjective mind puts out into the quantum field. When our will matches its will, when our minds match its mind, when our love for life matches its love for life, we are enacting this universal consciousness. We become the elevated power that transcends the past, heals the present, and opens doors to the future. We get back what we send out. Here's how this orchestration of events works in our lives. If we have experienced suffering, and within our minds and bodies we hold that suffering and express it through our thoughts and feelings, we broadcast that energetic signature into the field. The universal intelligence responds by sending into our lives another event that will reproduce the same intellectual and emotional response. Our thoughts send the signal out, I am suffering, and our emotions, I am suffering, draw into our lives an event to match that emotional frequency. That is, a good reason to suffer. In a very real sense, we are asking for proof of the existence of universal intelligence at all times, and it sends us feedback in our external environment at all times. That is how powerful we are. The question at the heart of this book is this: why don't we send out a signal that will produce a positive outcome for us? How can we change so that the signal we send out matches what we intend to produce in our lives? We will change when we fully commit to the belief that by choosing the thought/signal we send out, we will produce an effect that is observable and unexpected. With this objective intelligence, we are not punished for our sins, that is, our thoughts, feelings, and actions, but by them. When we project into the field a signal based on the thoughts and feelings such as suffering produced by some undesirable experiences in our past, is it any wonder that the field responds in the same negative way? How many times have you uttered these words, or very similar ones? I can't believe it. Why does this always happen to me? Based on your new understanding of the nature of reality, do you now see that those statements reflect your acceptance of the Newtonian/Cartesian model in which you are a victim of cause and effect? Do you see that you are fully capable of causing an effect yourself? Do you see that instead of responding in the manner above, you could be asking yourself, how can I think, feel, and behave differently to produce the effect/result that I want? Our mission, then, is to willfully move into the state of consciousness that allows us to connect to universal intelligence, make direct contact with the field of possibilities, and send out a clear signal that we truly expect to change and to see the results that we want in the form of feedback produced in our lives. Ask for quantum feedback. When you do create purposefully, request a sign from the quantum consciousness that you have made contact with it. Dare to ask for synchronicities related to your specific desired outcomes. When you do, you are being bold enough to want to know that this consciousness is real and that it is aware of your efforts. Once you accept this, then you can create in a state of joy and inspiration. This principle asks us to lay down what we think we know, surrender to the unknown, then observe the effects in the form of feedback in our lives. And that is the best way we learn. When we get positive indications, when we see our external circumstances shift in a favorable direction, we know that whatever we did inside of us was right. Naturally, we'll remember what we did so we can do it again. So when feedback begins to occur in your life, you can choose to be like a scientist in a process of discovery. Why not monitor any changes to see that the universe is favorable to your efforts and prove to yourself that you are that powerful? So how can we connect with that state of consciousness? Quantum physics is nonsense. Newtonian physics postulated that there is always a linear series of interactions that are predictable and repeatable. You know, if A plus B equals C, then C plus D plus E equals F. But in the wacky world of the quantum model of reality, everything is intercommunicating within a higher dimensional field of information that is holistically entangled beyond space and time as we know it. One reason why quantum physics is so elusive is that for years we have been accustomed to thinking based on our senses. If we measure and reaffirm reality with our senses, we are stuck in the Newtonian paradigm. Instead, the quantum model demands that our understanding of reality not be based on our senses. Quantum physics is nonsense. In the process of creating future reality via the quantum model, our senses should be the last to experience what the mind has created. The very last thing we experience is sensory feedback. Why? The quantum is a multidimensional reality that exists beyond your senses, in a realm where there is no body, no thing, no time. Thus, to move into that domain and create from that paradigm, You'll need to forget about your body for a little while. You'll also have to temporarily shift your awareness away from your external environment, all those things that you identify with in your life. Your spouse, your kids, your possessions, and your problems are all part of your identity. Through them, you identify with the outer world. And finally, you will have to lose track of linear time. That is, in the moment when you are intentionally observing a potential future experience, you will have to be so present that your mind no longer vacillates between memories of the past and expectations of a same-as-usual future. Isn't it ironic that to influence your reality, environment, heal your body, or change some event in your future time, you have to completely let go of your external world? No thing. You have to release your awareness of your body? No body. You have to lose track of time? No time. In effect, you have to become pure consciousness. Do that, and you have dominion over the environment, your body, and time. I affectionately call these the Big Three. And since the subatomic world of the field is made purely of consciousness, you cannot enter any other way than via pure consciousness yourself. You cannot walk through the door into the quantum field as a somebody. You must enter as a nobody. Your brain has the innate ability to harness this skill. Stay tuned for more. When you understand that you are fully equipped to do all this, leave this world behind, and enter a new reality beyond space and time, you will be naturally inspired to apply it in your life. Going beyond space and time. What does it mean to be beyond space and time? These are constructs that humans created to explain physical phenomena involving location and our sense of the temporal. When we talk about a glass sitting on a table, we reference it in terms of location, where it is in space, and how long it has occupied that location. As humans, we're obsessed with these two conceptions: where we are, how long we've been there, how long we will remain, where we'll go next. Even though time is not something that we can actually sense, we feel it passing in much the same way that we sense our location in space. We feel the seconds, minutes, and hours passing by, just as we feel our bodies pressed against our chairs and our feet planted on the ground. In the quantum field, the infinite probabilities for materializing reality are beyond time and space, because a potential doesn't yet exist. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't have a location or occupy a position temporally. Anything that doesn't have material existence, that hasn't had its waves of probability collapsed into particle reality, exists beyond space and time. Since the quantum field is nothing but immaterial probability, it is outside of space and time. As soon as we observe one of those infinite probabilities and give it material reality, it acquires those two characteristics. To enter the field, enter a similar state. Great! We have the power to make material a reality of our own choosing by selecting it from the quantum field. But we have to somehow access that field. We're always connected to it. But how do we get the field to respond to us? If we're constantly emitting energy, and therefore sending information to the field and receiving information from it, how do we communicate more effectively with it? In upcoming chapters, I will talk at length about how to enter the field. For now, what you need to know is that to enter the field, which exists beyond space and time, you have to enter a similar state. Do you ever have any experiences when time and space seem to disappear? Think of those moments when you're driving and your thoughts are focused on some concern you have. When that happens, you forget about your body. You are no longer aware of how you feel in space. You forget about the environment. The external world disappears. And you forget about time. You have no idea how long you are tranced out. At moments like these, you've been at the threshold of the door that allows you to enter the quantum field and gain access to working with universal intelligence. In essence, you've already made thought more real than anything else. Later on, I will provide instruction on how to move into that state of consciousness regularly, to access the field and to communicate more directly with the universal intelligence that animates all things. Change your mind. Change your life. As this chapter has progressed, I've led you from the notion that mind and matter are fully separable to the quantum model, which states that they are inseparable. Mind is matter and matter is mind. So all those times in the past when you tried to change, maybe your thinking was fundamentally limited. You likely believed that it was always circumstances outside of you that needed to change. If I didn't have so many other commitments, I could lose the excess weight, and then I'd be happy. We've all stated some variation on that theme. If this, than that. Cause and effect. What if you could change your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, and your way of being, outside the bounds of time and space? What if you could change ahead of time and see the effects of those internal changes in your external world? You can. What has profoundly and positively changed my life and the lives of so many others is the understanding that changing one's mind and thereby having new experiences and gaining new insights is simply a matter of breaking the habit of being oneself. When you overcome your senses, when you understand that you are not bound by the chains of your past, when you live a life that is greater than your body, your environment, and time, all things are possible. The universal intelligence that animates the existence of all things will both surprise and delight you. It wants nothing more than to provide you with access to all you want. In short, when you change your mind, you change your life.